Welcome back into another episode of Spaceman 2.0 Phoenix Truth Rising Show. Here to help you grow in the knowledge and wisdom of truth, and the truth will set you free. With the best history lesson and spiritual insights on the planet, exposure of the Illuminati's plan of world conquest and control is the death knell to the New World Order. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all my subscribers. I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you to all my new subscribers as well. And thank you to all the shout outs from my crypto community. And I really appreciate that. I do apologize for the lag in time of getting the next episode out of the Phoenix Truth Rising Show. This will be the last one for the Divine Plan Volume 2. It's due to technical issues with the phone not having enough memory. And so I was trying to put out videos quickly. And I kind of speed up at the end sometimes because I feel a lack of timing. So with that being said, let's get back into God 2 as a Plan 2000, Divine Plan Volume 2. Remember, the Phoenix Journals are our instructions and insights to our personal spiritual soul's contract on this planet for the 144,000 chosen ones. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So let's always remember the Weavers, Randy Weaver and his daughter that was killed by the snipers, Janet Reno probably. Not a lot of people know about Bo Gritz, but he was a great man. He could have ran for president back in the 90s. So back to quakes. Word also has it that FEMA is now telling plans. For instance, they are now advertising and in addition are telling ones in Washington state that, for instance, you are on a branching fault, which is expected to go with the San Andreas, and warning people to be prepared. Just to briefly go over this man's name, John Coleman. Please look that up. Committee of 300, he was one of the first to expose the Illuminati's plan. Finish this off and get back into Nebuchadnezzar's dream. This is great advice. Sometimes you simply cannot give, lest it be too much and be considered as those proverbial pearls before the blind. If your seeds be planted, the crop will grow. If not, then it be not your problem, but rather it is unto those who refuse to see and hear. We do that which we can, and then and all we leave it into the hands of God, for after all, it be his mission. We but the tools. Salut. Take this from the equipment and we shall work briefly on the mark of the beast for the Divine Plan 2. I need you to check with EJ and see what is in the status page quantity before we write further this day. So a little bit more commentary from HATONN on the daily ongoings before we get into Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 18. Chapter 17, recording number 1, HATONN, Wednesday, October 28th, 1992, 9:33 a.m., year 6, day 73. Because that's counting from 1987, which is when the harmonic convergence came in, and that started a new counting system. So we're never told the true calendar, that's for sure. So the elites can always be 30 years ahead. Okay, witching hour. Wait a minute, you are not going to turn any more projections or predictions onto HATONN. Nothing else is going to become HATONN's, this or that, as in the photon belt. These things that do not happen are exactly and explicitly why. I do not give you dates and places except as they are rumored unto me, and I can see that there is validity in the planning. What does not come off is most often avoided by many of your patriots, insiders, operatives, and agents who know, and ourselves telling every time there is a hint of dastardly deeds. I remind you, evil cannot function in the light of truth. I'll say that again. I remind you, evil cannot function in the light of open truth. It's a good point. Let's read that again. I remind you, evil cannot function in the light of open truth. October 28th. This is the day of predicted collapse of the money system. Interesting for our crypto fans out there. Can this be a day that's happening in the future for November to pop off with the ISO 20022 messaging system taking effect fully for all banks? Did I not tell you, my wonderful subscribers, that this is our instructions? October 28th, this is the day of predicted collapse of the money system. You had better not wait for the disaster, but pray as hard as you can for a little while longer. The perpetrators are in such a dilemma and conundrum this day as to not be able to tell which end is upward. Things are transpiring, and while the elite try to track down the rumors as to validity, they dare not run risks of disclosure either. And if you're not enjoying HATONN's commentary by now, he's so insightful and wise, but at the same time entertaining and delightful laughter, because he just said, don't put predictions and timings onto me, and then he says October 28th is the day predicted. So, you know, it's all fun and games, really, but the truth will set us free. Latest rumor this day, amen. Early notice, rumor has it, this day that Perot's VP candidate is stepping aside and talk is underway to pull Beau Gritz in as a running mate. Is it true? Wait and see, and do not spoil negotiations by your need to go crazy. Of course, I sanction such a move, as I believe can be seen from all of my writings. God works in most strange ways, his wonders to perform. But you have to help from your end. This one action right now could be the beginning of salvaging your nation in a return path to freedom. Will you do it? God will bless thine actions if you but ask in his name and serve in his intent as a lighted lamp onto the globe. If enough of you desire this to come to be, so shall it be thus. So you see, they try to keep us in a collective consciousness of negativity, focused on Hollywood movies instead of on the truth, that we can set ourselves free by imagining and projecting that willfulness into the mind's eye and outward into the universe by actions of love and truth onto your fellow man. Korean liftoff. This one I do refuse to take what is now being tittered. Aren't you in bad enough shape to stop twittering and twaddling and get on with that which is about to destroy you? Remember, this is before Twitter. You are already in Armageddon. You didn't need some self-styled prophet telling you about it and promising liftoff to blinded people. Those who acted are poor children accepting the word of man. For God has told you that you would not know the moment of his coming. Neither doth God tell you to go forth and sell your property and give it onto a preacher, anywhere. I have repeatedly gotten into severe trouble with your media and groupies, churches and sects, because I have said there is not, nor will there be, a rapture as described by your evangelists. You are not going to get a thing for doing nothing. I further suggest that you stop accepting things told to you that HATONN said, as interpreted by anyone telling you anything. Go read it and study it for yourself. DYOR for our crypto fans out there. Do your own research. Go out there. Go read it and study it for yourself. It is now there for all the world to see, including the enemy who reads it religiously. Moreover, I recommend that you stop listening to ones who tell you that God would not get involved in your problems. Why else do you pray unto God, Chellas? If your mess and your prayers of intent of goodness are offered in honest petition, you're going to get response from God, and very, very often in the form of his hosts, us. Millions of you Americans desire to change and reclaim your nation. We will show you the way, but you will do the work. Let's reread part of that again. Very important information. Why else? Spiritual wisdom. Why else do you pray unto God? Chellas, if your mess and your prayers of intent of your goodness and are offered in honest petition, you are going to get response from God, and very, very often in the form of his hosts, us. Millions of you Americans desire to change and reclaim your nation. We will show you the way, but you will do the work. Let us share Cast Your Bread Upon the Water, shared with us in a book offered in friendship from a gifted writer, Ken Coons. Thank you, brother. Cast your bread upon the water, and it shall return to you, 20-fold, 30-fold, or just a crumb or two. For a man must lie in the bed he makes, and reap the seeds he sows. If he can't learn to give and take, each day his bitterness grows. Cast your bread upon the water, whether you be rich or poor. If a man is a man, he never will keep score of the times that he has been mocked or shamed for wealth or poverty, or others' sins when he was blamed. He'll still not act spitefully. Cast your bread upon the water, heart and soul of one accord. When you give, never give just to get a reward. Be a friend of him who will need a friend, regardless of his skin. For all our hopes and wishes blend, and every man is your kin. So take a few minutes and ponder that poem. Chapter 18, recording number 2, HATONN, Wednesday, October 28, 1992, 10:27 a.m., year 6, day 73. Charlemagne. Let us briefly continue with Charlemagne in passing, and then end this volume, for we are making it too difficult for our indexers if we go to greater volumes of information in sequence journals. It is like trying to index a year's quantity of separate U.S. news and world reports issues one by one. We are told over and over, however, that this indexing makes reference worth the time and space. I leave it to you who must attend the information. As we left off with Constantine's passing, we continue with what came next. This head had been severely wounded as it were unto death, but Charlemagne revived the empire in Europe. You can look it up and recall that he was king of Gaul. Then he conquered and made himself master of Italy and practically all of Germany, as well as his own country, Gaul, which today is called France. He conquered and ruled part of Spain, as well as some islands in the Mediterranean. He became an emperor, in fact, by his own ability, but in the city of Rome, he was crowned as Emperor of the Romans by the Pope Leo III. This, by the way, was the first time that an emperor had ever been crowned by a pope, and is the basis for the Catholic claim that the Pope has the right to rulership over kings. Charlemagne was there for a celebration of his taking over all of Italy, and while he was there, the Pope came out with a crown in his hands and put it on Charlemagne's head and said, "I crown you Emperor of the Romans." Well, as far as Charlemagne was concerned, why quarrel about it? He already was, so if they wanted to recognize him as such, that was all right. But the Church ever since has claimed that authority, so Charlemagne ruled as emperor until 810 AD, but they continued now to call this thing the Roman Empire, thereafter the Holy Roman Empire, because the Pope claimed the power to create and dispose kings as a divine prerogative. So the deadly wound was healed. Remember it said the people worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Revelations 13:4. While Charlemagne overran the Saxon peoples of Germany and the Visigoth, the peoples of Spain, both of them Israelites, interesting, as well as the various turbulent peoples of Italy. He was victorious everywhere, but by 888 AD, his dynasty fizzled out, whereas the founder of this dynasty was Charles the Great. The last two kings were known as Charles the Bald and Charles the Fat, and so it fizzled out. Isn't that interesting, with Prince Charles becoming King Charles in this day and age? Wow, the best history lesson. This is how you know where he got his name. In the absence of a strong emperor, Italy especially was torn by constant warfare between the various petty princes and independent cities. Anybody who can conquer a village of 400 people set himself up as a duke and aspired to conquer a neighboring village of 200 people and became an emperor. So there was an utterly intolerable chaos. These people were constantly fighting among themselves. In other words, you never could live at peace in your own city. If the petty ruler of your own city was not drafting you into his army to try to conquer the village 20 miles away, the ruler of that village 20 miles away was trying to conquer your city, and they were in desperate need of some strong authority to put down all this chaos. So they worshipped the beast, as it says. Wherever city or petty kingdom was getting the worst of it, always appealed to some other more powerful king for rescue, and the rescue always meant that you were absorbed into the kingdom of the rescuer. While the empire lasted, it was the emperor's policy to not allow any petty kinglet to grow strong enough to unify Italy. And both during the times when they had an emperor ruling and in the intervals between, the popes exerted all their influence to the same effect. The popes already ruled some lands in central Italy, given them by earlier kings, and they wanted to extend their power, so Charlemagne's dynasty ran out in 888 AD. Remember, Christ's true birthday is 8 BC, 8th of August, which is 888. After about a century of chaos, the Italians called on Otho I, King of Germany, to come and rescue them from the Hungarians, who were at that time devastating Lombardy in the north, and the Saracens from Africa, who ruled Sicily and were seeking to take over southern Italy. After making 2 expeditions into Italy to restore order, Otho I was crowned emperor by Pope John XII in 962 AD. This new emperor was the German king, and his new empire thereafter was called the Holy Roman Empire, and it claimed to exist as such until the year 1806, 186 years ago. Wow. Remember, that is about 30-ish, 40 years from now. So 226 years ago or something like that. The Holy Roman Empire was still existing. Now, after speaking of this strange composite beast with the characteristics of all 4 that Daniel had seen rising out of the sea, John goes on in Revelation 13, verses 11 and 12. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the sea. Remember, but this one came up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns as a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell thereon to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. This next beast, this one that had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke as a dragon, this is the papacy. It came up out of the earth, not out of the sea. In the many times the words earth or world have been used symbolically in the Bible, it always refers to the so-called prophetic earth of world. They were the areas near the Mediterranean Sea and contained the nations which were covered by these earlier prophecies. In other words, when the earlier prophets talked about the whole world and so forth, they were not talking about Germany and Scandinavia. They were not talking about the American continent. They were not talking about China. None of these areas came in any way in contact with the peoples who made up the prophetic world at the time of our discussion. So with that being said, I'm going to finish off Nebuchadnezzar's other dream in the next episode, and I'll do that one today. It will probably be a shorter one, and we'll get into the next journal to understand the truth, because the truth will make you free. So thank you for tuning in to the Phoenix Truth Rising Show. You can get your copy today of a Phoenix Journal by scrolling down below and see how you can donate, and I'll have one shipped out to you today. This is the Spaceman 2.0, and